Here are the top stories for today, July 23, 2020. IATF EID Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says the government is balancing its targeted lockdowns while rebuilding the economy. The House of Representatives will implement strict physical distancing and health protocols during the President's fifth State of the Nation address on Monday. Defense Secretary Lorenzana defends the anti-terrorism law. And the Philippine Army welcomed the NBI's filing of charges against the 9 police officers involved in Sulu shooting. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The government is balancing its targeted lockdowns while rebuilding the economy. According to the IATF EID Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., the second phase of the government's National Action Plan focuses on balancing Filipinos' health and the gradual reboot of the economy. Galvez said local government units were tasked to impose granular targeted lockdowns if necessary to further contain the transmission of the dreaded virus within their areas. He said the government is also strengthening the expansion of the country's actual testing capacity. Galvez urged the public to keep safe against the risks of COVID-19 infections.
NAP Phase 2 is based on the hammer and dance theory, wherein the government shall continue to contain the spread of the virus through its zoning and containment strategy or targeted lockdown, while slowly rebuilding our economy. We will also continue to strictly implement the health and safety standards across all quarantine classification, particularly also sa ating mga private sectors at mga workers. We already had more or less 10 million testing kits available for that. And we are now increasing our testing capacity, now more than 50,000, and we were able to test 27,000 a day.
The Department of Interior and Local Government is set to hire more contact tracers. Meanwhile, the Justice Department ensures that human rights of the people are protected amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government said it is waiting for the enactment of the proposed Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, or Bayanihan 2, to be able to hire additional contact tracers. In a pre-SONA virtual briefing, Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said they will initially recruit 50,000 new contact tracers upon the enactment of the Bayanihan 2. He says the country has currently 4,818 contact tracing teams nationwide, with 65,675 members. The DILG needs around 87,000 contact tracers to strengthen its tracing ability.
Sa bawat isang positive na natitrace natin, go back for 14 days, 37 close contacts ang nag-generate yan. At ito ay possible na maaari infected. This is really what you call lots of work. But we will do it, and we will continue to strengthen our contact tracing efforts. And with additional contact tracing members, we can defeat this COVID-19.
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice said it continues to ensure that the constitutional rights of the people are protected and the rule of law is consistently upheld amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara said the National Bureau of Investigation has focused on offenses that are connected to the pandemic, such as hoarding, overpricing, profiteering, irregularities in the distribution of the government's cash aid, and the violation of quarantine protocols. He also denied allegations of a double standards in the government's enforcement of quarantine laws. He cited the case of Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel III, saying well-off violators of the law are also charged and prosecuted.
It's really a matter of perception, no? But kasi greater number yung mga tao sa masasabi natin na nasa lower income levels, yung tinatawag natin mga mahihirap, na nahuhuli sa mga violations. So, but it doesn't mean at all that there is an unfair application of the law. We apply this uniformly as possible, Anjo.
In other news, DNR Secretary Roy Cimatu said climate change issues remains one of the top priorities of the Duterte administration. Cimatu said the government will increase our resilience and adaptive capacity to both coronavirus pandemic and climate change.
We shall intensify, enhance surveillance and enforcement activities in degradation hotspots and critical ecosystems. For food security, the plant program shall be aggressively undertaken. Increased demand for water during the COVID-19 pandemic shall be addressed by fast-tracking the development of alternative water sources. We shall endeavor for a low-carbon path to recovery by sustaining the investments on renewable energy and energy conservation programs to ensure continuous power supply amidst pandemic.
For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Moahe.
Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said the government is pouring all its resources into assisting the vulnerable sectors who are reeling from the economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Nograles said the government recognizes the problem, and this is why Department of Social Welfare and Development emphasized the need for all government agencies to unite and help the Filipinos recover from the impact of the health crisis.
As Secretary Bautista reported, over 106 billion pesos from our Social Amelioration Program or SAP was distributed to provide assistance to more than 19 million beneficiaries. The SSS has approved a total of 479,000 applications for calamity assistance amounting to 7.5 billion pesos. The Department of Labor and Employment, for its part, has extended financial aid totaling 6.4 billion pesos to over 1.18 million displaced employees in the formal and informal sectors of the economy, including returning OFWs. Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture released cash subsidies to over 1 million affected farmers and fisherfolk amounting to 6 billion pesos. Private educational institutions can also seek help from the Land Bank of the Philippines Study Now, Pay Later lending program.
Another priority of the Duterte administration is the protection of the country's sovereignty and territory. In a pre-State of the Nation Address forum, Lorenzana said the DND has recently put up surveillance radars to monitor its airspace and maritime territories against encroachments.
Defending national sovereignty and protecting territorial integrity is a paramount priority of this administration. We have actively pushed for the effective implementation of the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. We are upgrading existing facilities in the 9 islands that comprise the municipality of Kalayaan, particularly the island of Pag-asa. The Philippines has taken diplomatic actions against China for activities against our national sovereignty. We continue to boost our defense capability through the AFP modernization program. We strengthened our maritime security cooperation with neighboring nations such as Indonesia and Malaysia to secure our shared borders. We have also launched marine explorations to protect the biodiversity of our waters.
Still to come, Central Visayas is preparing for the arrival of over 100 LSIs from Luzon. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is also preparing for Monday's State of the Nation Address. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. In Cebu City, the Regional Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases is now readying for the arrival of more than 100 locally stranded individuals from Luzon. The LSIs are expected to arrive in the 4 provinces in Central Visayas next week. DILG Regional Information Office Michael Braga said the next batch of LSIs will take on government-sponsored trips from Metro Manila and will also be given a small traveling allowance. All Hatid Tulong program beneficiaries are required to present negative results of rapid tests before boarding their flights. They will also be subjected to quarantine protocols implemented by the local government unit of their destination. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana says over 92,000 overseas Filipinos who returned to the country are also going back to their provinces. He said the Department of Foreign Affairs has implemented massive efforts to bring home displaced and stranded Filipinos abroad due to the pandemic, while those who severely affected were provided with financial and legal assistance. Dengue cases in Bicol decreased by 65% and bloodletting in Cebu yields more than 300 bags. More on these and other news from the country's healthcare from Chris Mundo.
The Department of Health reported a drop in the number of dengue cases in Bicol region by 65%. This is during the first half of 2020. According to the Dengue Surveillance Unit, 6 provinces of Bicol, covering the period from January to July 18 this year, showed a total of 1,231 cases and 10 deaths, a significant drop from the 3,501 cases and 42 deaths recorded during the same period last year. Camarines Sur has the highest number of dengue cases, followed by Sorsogon, Camarines Norte, Albay, Masbate, and Catanduanes. The Health Department warns that dengue cases could still increase due to the onset of the rainy season. It advises the public to always maintain the cleanliness of surroundings and get rid of stagnant water. In Cebu City, a total of 321 bags of blood from various donors in Metro Cebu have been collected after its massive bloodletting activities. The continuous campaign, dubbed as Donate Blood, Save Lives, Be a Hero, is a response to the rising demand for blood in the region due to COVID-19 crisis. Another bloodletting activity is set on July 23 to 24 in the western Cebu town of Balamban. As the country ramps up its COVID-19 testing capacity, the DOH says there are now 68 licensed RT-PCR laboratories and 23 licensed GenExpert laboratories nationwide. These testing laboratories have performed an average of 24,695 tests per day in the past week, or a total of 1,193,473 tests to date. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The House of Representatives will implement strict physical distancing and health protocols during President Duterte's 5th State of the Nation address on Monday. In a media briefing, House Deputy Secretary General Ramon Ricardo Roque said health screening, sanitation and disinfection, and limiting of personnel and guests within the Batasan premises will be strictly implemented. Face masks shall be worn at all times with an added requirement of face shields for those entering the session hall. Physical distancing of 2 meters shall be strictly followed. Floor markings of at least 6 feet apart will be placed at all entrances, elevators, and places with foot traffic. Senators, House members, guests, technical staff who shall be physically present at the opening in the morning and the SONA in the afternoon shall undergo mandatory RT-PCR or swab tests on Sunday, July 26. Only members of the Presidential Broadcast Staff, Radio Television Malacanang or RTVM will be authorized inside the Chamber's premises to cover the SONA. Media companies are advised to hook up to the live feed of PTV4 or the live stream of the PCOO and RTVM. In Ilocos Norte, all businesses including quarry operations are now back to the normal, subject to prescribed health protocols. Such as, permittees are now lining up at the provincial quarry office to secure their permits with intent to expand their area of operations. One of which is Nickel Asia Corporation, the Philippines' top nickel ore producer. Nickel is moving up north to explore Ilocos Norte's investment potentials. For years, Ilocos Norte has been conservative in terms of mining, but as the Philippine government promotes rational exploration, development, utilization, and conservation of mineral resources, the provincial government has invited potential investors to help in the province's economic recovery. Nickel Asia's Vice President for Corporate Corporations, Jose Bayani Bailon, expressed their company's intent to explore the province's mining potential and to generate local employment by inviting more investors. The provincial government hopes to generate more funds for its social development programs. In our business news, the Employers Confederation of the Philippines reacted to the announcement of DOH urging businesses to randomly test their employees every 14 days using rapid test kits. ECOP says business owners, particularly small-scale businesses, cannot afford to provide rapid testing among their employees every 2 weeks amid the challenging business environment due to the pandemic. ECOP said large companies have been voluntarily testing their employees using rapid testing kits as part of their corporate social responsibility. However, requiring businesses to test the employees every 2 weeks will not be viable. It says businesses are shutting down their operations either temporarily or permanently. That also leads to laying off their workers. Requiring business owners to conduct random COVID-19 rapid tests for their employees and repeating it every 2 weeks will add to the cost of doing business and will drive those still operating to eventual closure. Meanwhile, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry wants the government to allow the full resumption of businesses amid the COVID-19 pandemic. PCCI says it believes that full resumption of businesses while preventing the spread of the virus is possible, as what countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, South Korea, and the other European countries have done. PCCI President Benedicto Yuhuico said these countries have sustained fully opened economies while maintaining health protocols like physical distancing and implementing widespread testing, contact tracing, and lockdown on specific communities. He said opening a business and limiting it to only 30 to 50% would only result to losses. Based on dialogues with PCCI's local chambers in North and South Luzon as well as in Mindanao, Yuhuico said 50% have closed down their businesses while those that are still in operation have reduced their employment to 25 to 30%. PCCI said prolonging the lockdowns could harm the country's long-term economic future while people are losing their jobs and families are out of money to spend for their basic needs. Up next, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana defends the anti-terrorism law. And the Philippine Army welcomed the NBI's filing of charges against the 9 police officers involved in Sulu shooting. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 will allow government security forces to defeat the threats posed by terror groups, according to Defense Secretary Lorenzana. In a pre-SONA briefing, Lorenzana said the passage of Republic Act number 11479, also known as the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, will greatly enable security forces to proactively defeat and prevent terrorism. He also assured the public that the newly enacted law is aimed at curbing terrorist groups out to wreak terror and violence against the Filipino public and their communities. Lorenzana added that they will not allow this law to be abused and used to trample human rights. Earlier, he said fears that the law is unconstitutional and could trample on people's rights are unfounded. The law has been questioned by critics, including several petitions before the Supreme Court. While it took effect last July 18, Lorenzana said they would wait for the implementing rules and regulations to be crafted by the Anti-Terrorism Council and the Department of Justice before the law can be implemented. The Philippine Army on Wednesday welcomed the National Bureau of Investigation's decision to file charges against the 9 police officers involved in the shooting of 4 military intelligence operatives in Sulu last June 29. Army Chief Lieutenant General Gov't expressed confidence that they will secure conviction against the perpetrators. He said the sacrifices made by these 4 soldiers have further fueled the Philippine Army's determination and resolve to fight terrorism. Gov't also lauds the professionalism of troops who remain steadfast and faithful to their mandate despite the death of the 4. The 4 soldiers were conducting intelligence and monitoring operations against 2 suspected suicide bombers when gunned down by 9 Jolo police officers. NBI Western Mindanao filed 4 counts of murder and planting of evidence against the 9 police officers. The NBI also recommended the filing of complaints for neglect of duty against Sulu Provincial Police Chief Colonel Michael Bawayan, Jolo Police Chief Major Walter Anayo, and Sulu Provincial Drugs Enforcement Unit Chief Captain Ariel Corsino. Malacanang on Wednesday expressed sadness over a survey result which showed that hunger incidence in the Philippines has reached its highest level. This after social weather stations revealed in its latest survey that around 20.9% or about 5.2 million families experienced involuntary hunger in the past 3 months. The latest hunger rate is the highest since the 22% or an estimated 4.8 million families reported in September 2014. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque acknowledged that hunger incidence was high in areas that are still under general community quarantine quarantine or modified GCQ due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Roque said the poll results prove that there is a need to reopen the country's economy. In a bid to save the economy and people's jobs, Roque appealed to the public to observe the minimum public health standards by wearing masks, washing hands, and keeping a safe distance. In sports, Philippine Sports Commission Chairman William Ramirez on Wednesday announced changes in the agency's organizational setup. Attorney Guillermo Iroy Jr. is appointed as acting executive director, filling in the spot of Merlita Ibay, who reoccupied her original destination as deputy executive director for finance and administrative services. Queenie Evangelista will head the Bureau of Coordinating Secretariat and Support Services as its acting deputy executive director. The revamp happens in light of a payroll anomaly discovered last week, where a PSC employee allegedly collected millions of funds from athletes and coaches' allowance in the past 5 years. The National Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice, and the Office of the Solicitor General have been asked to assist with the investigation and case. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. IATF EID Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says the government is balancing its targeted lockdowns while rebuilding the economy. The House of Representatives will implement strict physical distancing and health protocols during the President's fifth State of the Nation address on Monday. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana defends the anti-terrorism law. And the Philippine Army welcomed the NBI's filing of charges against the 9 police officers involved in Sulu shooting. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day and stay safe, everyone.